Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, guys, this is a very reputable source. It's a Science Alert. A very interesting article. Let's read through it and we'll explore it and discuss it as we move along. It's certainly connected with the hypothesis that we made earlier a few weeks ago, where we discussed that we were between the two polarities of An-Najm al-Thaqib, the neutron star, our sun, and the brown dwarf star, which is behind us. Maybe in the outer reaches of well, not necessarily the outer reaches of the solar system, but maybe perhaps behind, within the asteroid belt, hence why we're seeing so many meteorites being flung in our direction, as well as asteroids, near Earth objects that are being, and again, it's quite timely that NASA should, recently, it wasn't so long ago that they actually launched the NEOWISE satellite, which basically observes near Earth objects, flying objects, right? Which are namely asteroids and meteorites. At any rate, when we went through this polarity, we hypothesized that we should, in the ensuing days, experience earthquakes and extreme weather, both of which have happened and we've experienced, and the extreme weather is continuing, especially where the equator is, right? And it's something that we've discussed this in another vlog as well. That when the sun and solar coronal mass ejection occurs, then those particulates enter the atmosphere of the Earth, penetrate it all the way through to the core, exciting the core, and then the core then, as a mirrored effect, will again resonate and vibrate, and that frequency then is transferred into the magma all the way up to the crust, thus the earthquakes as well as the oceans warming up. Then what happens also is the atmosphere gets excited, right? Through this exchange, this magnetic exchange and the magnetic particulates, okay? The CME, the coronal mass ejection that heads our way in our direction. All of this then excites the atmosphere as well, causing the sort of extreme winds, precipitation. Now, this article is very interesting because since 2015, they've seen a hike come from nowhere, that's heating our ocean's waters. And we've discussed that this system has merged with our solar system, and has been getting closer since, within this time frame, and now is absolutely merged with our system, and they're occluding it, cloaking it, and hiding it. So let's read this article anyway together. A massive blob of abnormal conditions in the Pacific have increased ozone levels. Strangest meteorological events in decades. Again, these are all records, subhanAllah, right? Which is quite timely as well. And I don't think they're all just basically consequences of this particular binary star system having entered our solar system, or merged with it, rather. A vast patch of abnormally warm water in the Pacific Ocean, nicknamed Blob, resulted in increased levels of ozone above the western US, researchers have found. The blob, which at its peak covered roughly 9 million square kilometers, that's 3 million square miles, from Mexico to Alaska, was assumed to be mainly messing with the conditions in the oceans. But a new study has shown that it had lasting effects on air quality too. Ultimately, it all links back to the blob being this huge thing that covers more than half the surface of the globe, right? Okay. The blob, which at its peak covered roughly 9 million square kilometers, right? Okay, so we've read that. Ultimately, it all links back to the blob, which was most unusual meteorological event we've had in decades, says one of the teams, Dan Jeff from the University of Washington, Bothell. The blob of warm water in the Pacific was first detected back in 2013, and it continued to spread throughout 2014 and 2015, so it's been increasing as this system from the ecliptic getting closer and closer, right? 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017 now, right? and now it's at its peak. Whilst it was less obvious in 2016, there were some indications that it persisted well into last year too. The vast warm patch has been linked to several mass die-offs. Subhanallah. Now, isn't that interesting? I've given you a document. It's been uploaded on the channel as well, in the discussion board, or I think on About Us, where we discussed the mass die-offs and documented all the mass die-offs of 2016, and they are astoundingly scary figures. The statistics are very, very worrying, subhanAllah. Okay, so all these mass die-offs have been linked to this, right? In the ocean during 2015, including thousands of California sea lions starving to death in water more than 3 degrees Celsius above average, and an unprecedented mass death of seabirds in the western US. Now remember, precipitation is obviously exasperated. It catalyzes it. Why is the seawater is warming up? Hence you're seeing now, subhanAllah, all the floods, flash floods world over. You've seen it in the States. You've seen it with California, the Oroville Dam about to collapse, right? And they've seen more water than they've seen in decades. You've got the same in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Europe, all parts, especially more so around the equator, where they're seeing more water than they've ever experienced, subhanAllah. And as I understand, and this is my hypothesis, is that a star is causing that, right? And it's perturbing our solar system, but not only that, it has a magnetic and a gravitational influence, and all of that is exciting the core of the Earth. Hence why we're seeing that, and this is most likely the same star that was the asbab and the means of the great deluge in the time of Noah, the great floods. Okay, the same sort of event would have occurred where precipitation would have occurred, and then landslides would have occurred, and then maybe perhaps the tsunamis would have occurred. So water was coming in from all directions, whether they were atmospheric water, so the rains, right? Or whether it was sea levels rising and tsunamis coming in, right? But there was water coming from all directions, and this is one means, scientific means, subhanAllah, one asbab that can justify it quite comfortably. I mean, the glove fits, subhanAllah. Okay, so in April 2015, the effects could be seen on land without the strange weather in the US, there you go, being linked to higher ocean temperatures, and the increased temperatures saw a massive toxic algal bloom, okay, which is the algae, right, stretched along the entire US west coast, and this is also suffocating the oceanic life beneath the ocean, simply because it's covering the sun and preventing oxygen from mixing with the waters, hence suffocating the sea mammals and the fish. I can't really give an explanation of what is going on right now. Obviously, he can't, because he doesn't see the connection between a binary system and what's happening here on Earth, right? Marine ecologists, Jamie, I mean, they're marine ecologists, so they're experts about that. In terms of astronomy and the climate, I guess they can't make the connection because they most likely aren't aware of this. Okay, Jeff and his team have been monitoring ozone levels over the US since 2004 and happened to notice a bizarre spike in 2015. Isn't that interesting? A spike in 2015. I mean, are these just coincidences? Okay, they wondered if the crazy event linked to the blob that year could also have been driving that massive boost in ozone. At first, we were like, whoa, maybe we made a mistake. We looked at our sensors to see if we made an error in the calibration, but we couldn't find any mistakes. Okay. Then I looked at another ozone data, okay, from around the Pacific Northwest, and everybody was high that year. Okay, to see if there was a connection, the team mapped a lifespan of the blob of unprecedented detail using multiple satellites positioned all over the globe, track temperature fluctuations of the Pacific Ocean surfaces between 2014 and 2016. They then went back and compared the events to sea surface temperature records dating back to 1910, and that they found was unlikely any natural phenomenon ever seen in record history. Subhanallah. I can't implore you enough genuinely, can only request scholars to study the science PDF, and then everything that's been vlogged on the channel as well since then, archived onto the channel. The evidence is not only just mounting up, it's worrying and concerning, because as far as my position is, this is a very real event, and the consequences are going to be very real as well. And we're certainly nowhere near in a position where we have informed the Ummah of what is likely on the horizon, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. At the very least, we need to be studying this, right? And then maybe you decide different, then this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But seriously, I just can't. This is really of the utmost importance. This phenomenon is something new. One of the team, actually Gatman, uh, gentleman from Earth and Space Research in Seattle, told National Geographic, um, from the entire record, this event is unprecedented in magnitude and duration. There's just nothing like it in our historical record. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. I mean, seriously? I'll leave a link to this. This is peer-reviewed, real science, right? And they're unsure where it's coming from simply because they're not aware. It's all compartmentalized, right? From the top, the shayateen in Sinjin, they compartmentalize things. And this information, it's only when you kind of have, well, you recognize the patterns that are emerging that you can connect the dots. These individuals, simply because their particular field of expertise is limited to what it is, they can't see the connection of how and why this is occurring over here with possibly a binary system having entered our solar system. Okay, they found the effects of the blob on the land, warmer temperatures, low cloud cover, and calmer air actually combined to produce extra ozone, and by June 2015, this had pushed ozone levels by between 3 to 13 parts per billion, higher than average over the northwestern US. There you go. Certain areas with already high ozone levels, such as Salt Lake City and Sacramento, saw their ozone pushed above federally allowed limits. Now we understand that they're seeing a lot of high UV levels as well, and this maybe explains that. Subhanallah. Washington and Oregon was really the bullseye for the whole thing. That's interesting. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Washington the bullseye because of the location of the winds. Okay, Salt Lake City and Sacramento were on the edge of this event, but because their ozone is typically higher, those cities felt some of the more acute effects. So how does something in the ocean affect our ozone levels? Under normal conditions, winds along with the west coast run along the surface of the ocean and push the top layer away from the coast. This allows the colder water below to take its place, bringing vital nutrients with it and balancing out the temperature. Subhanallah. Ajib how the nizam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works. But the team found that during the blob's peak, the increased temperatures on the surface of the ocean had caused the air above to heat up and stagnate. Ya Allah. This weakened the coastal winds so much they were no longer able to push the warm top layer of the Pacific away from the shoreline. Okay, and all of this explains how the Arctic ice sheets and shelves are melting as well, which is then, if anything, um, exacerbating the problem, right? And we're going to see an increase of these extreme weather tendencies, right? I don't see it getting any better until the system has gone off on its trajectory and the Earth can resume back to normality and its relationship again with our sun. At the moment, everything's in the air, subhanAllah, pun intended. And with no upwelling of the cool water, the high temperatures remained. And together with the lack of clouds, this allowed the chemical reaction that produces ozone, solar ultraviolet radiation. There you go, we just discussed that, right? That we're seeing a lot of that in the States, breaking down oxygen molecules to kick things up a notch. Temperatures were high and it was much less cloudy than normal, both of which trigger ozone production, say Jeff. And because of the high pressure system of the coast, the winds were much lower than normal. Winds blow pollution away, but when they don't blow, you get stagnation and the pollution is higher. While the ozone spike was only temporary, the team says we should take this as a warning for the future. Researchers already knew there was a connection between the higher atmospheric temperatures and the ozone production, but now we know that sea surface temperatures can affect it too. And with ozone pollution, known to cause serious respiratory dysfunction, right? Including aggravating pneumonia, asthma, and bronchitis, we'd better be prepared. And when something like a blob rears its head once more, the research has been published. Okay, in the Geophysical Research Letters. I'll leave a link to this, by the way. It's just, again, another nail in the coffin, and supporting this hypothesis laid out in the Science PDF. I can only beseech our beloved ulama kiram to study that. It's on the About Us link of the channel, Al-Uz channel, and then maybe perhaps you can go through everything that's been archived on the channel since. There's a lot of content to go through. It's come through a lot of painstaking research, and I've been blessed with being able to uh, discover and work alongside other very competent researchers, other peers in astronomy, in astrophysics, in theoretical physics, uh, within the military, and veterans as well, who have got connections in high places, alhamdulillah, and all of that, as well as the continuous stream, subhanallah, has brought me to this conclusion that we are going to experience um, the lion's share of the hadith concerning the end times and certain events that would occur during that time, including the three great landslides. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Anyway, Jazakallahu khairan for your time. Wa ahsanul jaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.